My name's Adelle Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 294 of Legally Clueless. Thank you for rocking with the podcast and being part of the family, whether you're an OG member or this is your first time ever hearing of us. This is what's coming up a little later in this episode. People are hiring those flashy cars to go home with to create the illusion that this is their everyday car.
Or prove a point.
And I was like, I've never heard of that. He was like, oh that's when we make a killing.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you saying?
To anyone who is in the car hire business, 100%. They make so much money between November and December. It's high season for any car hire business. High season.
I genuinely thought it was because, like efficiency somehow. I'm proving a point.
Exactly.
So maybe you could speak to December being the time you are around family.
Mm-hmm.
You may find that your financial boundaries are strained, if you have any.
Yeah.
Because there is pressure like no other to appear a certain way in those 4 weeks of December.
Yeah. I love that you raised that, Adele. I love conversations around emotional intelligence when it comes to, because it all boils down to what we call your money EQ, emotional intelligence when it comes to money matters. And sadly, I don't know whether it's even sadly, the solution to this is not even financial. Because you might have planned, you might have saved, you actually might have a reasonably good job, but there's buttons that family members know exactly how to press, that if you do not get to the root of it and address it from the psychological perspective or the relational perspective, you're always going to be caught up.
I'm really excited about that because we have our favorite money educator here, all in a bid to prepare us for our last wellness talk of the year that's going to help you not have another broke January. Oh my goodness. More details on that coming up in a bit. But first, if you're new here, audio episodes of this podcast go out every single Monday. But we have two other podcast shows. On Wednesdays, we have the Midweek Teas. And on Fridays, we have Ask a Therapist. So make sure you plug into all the shows we have. Then over on our YouTube, so much is happening there. We have our East Africa tour ongoing. I'll tell you more about it in a bit. We also have a fantastic series that's celebrating dope African women. I'll tell you more about that in a bit, but honestly, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. In the show notes, there's a link to it. Okay, man, so much to tell you. Where do I begin? First, honestly, I hope you're doing well. I really do. I feel like September, October is when burnout starts to creep in, and I truly hope that you're finding time and having capacity to take care of yourself. That's one. Second thing is on our wellness talk. Oh my goodness. We're going to talk a little bit about it later in this episode. But in case you don't know, we have virtual wellness talks to make sure that you are healthy in terms of your mental, in terms of your physical and your financial. So to wrap 2024, we're going to be making sure your financials are good right before December and the madness it brings. And so to ensure that you don't have a long, very broke January, we brought our favorite money educator, Susan Wanjiku, back on the podcast. She is amazing in how she breaks down very difficult financial terms into everyday things that we can understand. And so she is not just on the podcast, but she will be our guest speaker at our wellness talk that is quickly coming up on the 16th of November from 10 a.m. It's virtual, so wherever you are in the world, make sure you grab your tickets that are only 1,000 bob and tune in. To get your tickets, just click the link in the show notes. It's as simple as that. Grab your ticket. And she's going to be giving us tips to help us maneuver December. December comes with a lot of pressure, right? And if you don't have your financial boundaries in check, you can have a very hectic January. So the first thing Susan is going to be looking at is helping us build healthier financial boundaries, helping us move towards value-based spending. She's also going to teach us about having sinking funds for the things that we deem important for us to do in December. Also just going to be helping us understand the emotions that drive our spending in December. You know, sometimes you can find that maybe if you spend Decembers with family, there's pressure that comes that makes you want to all year long make some hectic financial decisions. Maybe it's moving your kids into a school that gives you bragging rights in December when you link up with your family. Maybe it's the car you're going to arrive to the family gathering in. Maybe it's the house you're going to be hosting your family in. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these things, they seem on the surface level like things that, I wouldn't do that. Very many people are bowing into that pressure. And so I love that Susan is going to help us navigate that. All in all, the talk is to ensure that we don't have another broke January. Whew. I mean, let me tell you, I had one terrible January that smacked me back into shape. I'm going to share more about it a little later in this episode. But right now, make sure you grab your tickets. They're going for 1,000 bob. A link to it is in the show notes. Right now, though, let's go to Kampala. Oh, we have so much inspiring stuff for you. My goodness. Okay. So we are currently on our East Africa tour, which we're doing in partnership with MasterCard Foundation and FAWE. And so we've gone across Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Uganda. This week we're in Kampala. First and foremost, the food in Kampala is out of this world. The taste is on a whole other level. I will never get tired of saying this. And so this week, a very inspiring lady took me to a local restaurant in Kampala that's known to have the best local Ugandan food. Like, I think I may have overeaten, but I'm not complaining. But back to the lady, her name is Jacqueline, and her story, honestly, even while I was recording it, and even now that the episode is out, I feel like Jacqueline's story is for anyone and everyone who is about to give up on their dreams or even on themselves. Before you make any decision, please make sure you listen to Jacqueline's entire story. Here's a snippet of it. Today I'm back in Kampala to meet a very special lady called Jacqueline, who has quite the inspiring story.
I originate, Gulu now inside, yeah.
Oh, further into Gulu?
Yeah, further into Gulu, about so many kilometers.
How do you handle the heat?
No,
Back
it
at
is
home.
better. It's better here.
Yeah. At home.
There it's hot. It's hot. It is very hot, and people are used to the heat.
Yeah.
Sometimes you even watch and you're like, how are kids even playing in the sun? And they're playing and it's so normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just acclimatization and getting used.
What's the name of the area?
The district is called Agago. It's a new district that was carved out of Kitgum. So, unfortunately, that is a place where life has not been very fair for girls.
Okay.
Because it was disturbed by the Lord's resistance insurgency for over a decade. So it was very dangerous actually to have a girl that side, because they would abduct them and then there would be wives to the rebels. So whoever had a girl would voluntarily just give them up to any relative who is away from that place.
To keep them safe.
Yeah, so most girls were abducted from schools. They came back with children. They came back with HIV. They came back with a lot of psychological disturbances. So it was not a very friendly place for the girl child in general.
Yeah.
And I think girls never lived to enjoy their childhood that entire time.
And so what was your family life like back there before you moved?
So basically, I'm a second-born child in a family of 4 children. My father was a police officer, and my mother was a housewife.
Okay.
So we lived most of our lives in barracks. They would keep shifting us from place to place. Wherever they would take your father is where you'd go.
move, yeah.
So we were so much in motion all the time because of the nature of work that he did. So that is the kind of life I've lived for a very long time. Until about my senior one. Yeah, that is when my father passed.
Okay.
He passed due to HIV/AIDS, and I didn't even know. I just discovered later in his documentations, his hospital documentations, that is why he had passed. And being a public servant, when the breadwinner passes, usually you're no longer entitled to what he was entitled to. So we were forced out of the house. We were not even given an opportunity to finish our term. So we moved from the barracks house to go and start life out of the barracks. And my mother, being a housewife, then was not used so much with the life of juggling and running a family. So just a few months after my father's demise, she became mentally ill.
Okay.
She became mentally ill, and that was very traumatizing for me, to see your mother, the only person you're counting on,
Yeah.
like walking on the streets,
Yeah.
probably naked, not even understanding what is happening to her. It was very traumatizing. So me being the second-born child, I think I was gifted differently. I'm somebody who didn't fear responsibility. So it was then that I now had to step up to stand out for the rest.
Yeah.
So with that, I tried to reach out to a number of our close relatives that I thought would stand in for us at such a trying time, but none of them.
That's a snippet of Jacqueline's story. The full inspiring story is on our YouTube channel. A link to it is in the show notes. Please make sure you watch it and then spread the inspirations. Share it with everyone and anyone who you know is trying to navigate a dark patch or is in a place where they don't think there's ever going to be light again in their life. This is one of those stories that can help you get some strength and resilience and hope back in your life. So make sure you watch it. All right. Another thing that's really awesome is I met Miss Universe Kenya and got to listen and hear her entire story at her dance studio. And this is all part of our She Walks series currently going on our YouTube channel. And so we teamed up with Johnny Walker for their She Walks campaign, where we are celebrating African women who are making bold decisions that are impacting communities. We have gone through Angela's story, that was the first episode, who is installing sanitary pad ATMs across Kenya. Then we went to Njeri Migwi, who's doing incredible work rescuing survivors of gender-based violence and running shelters in Kenya. Then we went to Bina Maseno, who at 22 ran for public office here in Kenya and is now doing her best to ensure there's more female representation in matters politics. And this week, we're all about pageantry and impacting the youth. So Miss Universe Kenya is Irene Ngendo, and her story is just so fascinating. Moving from studying mathematics and being a software engineer to not only writing a manual to help young people navigate life, but she's a few days away from representing Kenya at the Miss Universe pageant. How awesome is that? And we got to sit down with her at her dance studio. Like, she's doing so many amazing, incredible things. Here's a snippet of her story.
When it comes to pageantry, how I found myself in this, growing up, I always thought I wanted to try modeling. And I think ni kuchochwa na watu. Just people saying that you can do this thing, you're tall, you're small, just try it. So it was always in the back of my mind as something that I could possibly do. My first runway was in high school. We stacked tables together in a queue, like we just formed a U with it, and then I just walked on it. It was a random, I think we had called it cultural day or something, so I don't even know what I was wearing, the school blazer, some random outfit we just patched together, but I really loved that experience. And everyone moving, even when I was leaving the stage, people are coming at me and saying, if you don't do something with modeling, you've really wasted something because there's something there. So I think that fueled also let's just test it out and see what happens from there. So later after high school, I was like, okay, I like this. I really enjoy this. But I didn't know, my main question was, to what end? Who are you helping with this thing? What is this about? It's easy to see how a doctor, their skills are helping the community, people around them, a lawyer. It's easy to see that. But with modeling, I'm wondering, to what end? So when I finally discovered there's something like pageantry, where I can use modeling and then use it as a leadership platform for community service, I was locked. And so I just even threw away to the side high fashion modeling and commercial modeling and decided I want to focus on this because I can see how it can also help. So yes, I get to enjoy the runway, the glam, the beauty and everything, but I'm also still impacting the community one way or the other. So that's how I entered into pageantry. When I was schooling for mathematics and computer science, the degree, I decided, let me try out for Miss JQuat. And I won my first ever pageant. I won. I'm like, okay, you have this. You got this. Let's do another one. And I did another one and another one. And it's been 7 years in this space of pageantry. And my goal from day one has always been the Miss Universe crown. So being here as Miss Universe Kenya and going to represent Kenya in just 10 days is surreal. It's been something I've been working at for the longest time.
So we got to catch up with Irene. The full episode is on our YouTube channel. We got to peep in one of her dance classes where she's teaching some young girls a bit of ballet as she's getting ready to go to Mexico for Miss Universe. It's incredible. Head over to our YouTube channel for the entire episode. A link is in the show notes. Right now, though, let's jump right into random convos. We have our favorite money educator. She's the head of the Legacy Hub. Her name is Susan Wanjiku. Welcome to another random convo, and I have been wanting to do this particular random convo, so it's not as random, since the beginning of the year. I knew the person I wanted to have back on Legally Clueless to do it with. So first I'll introduce her, and then I'll tell you more about the random convo. We have our favorite money educator, who is Commander-in-Chief at the Legacy Hub. It's sticking. That's the title. Susan Wanjiku is here with us. Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing since we last met?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be back. I feel like we usually have such amazing conversations.
Yes.
We need like 3 hours. So thank you for having me back.
So the specific conversation as we kick up the ante heading to the festive season, which is always such good energy, good vibes, is how to make sure that January is not a complete opposite. It's not a complete opposite, especially financially. And so what we want to look into is how do we, I think we're calling it not another broke January, okay? And December and our habits around December have a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So I'll start it off with like where I became conscious that I was not going to have another broke January. I think I've had one specific broke January, and it was purely because of nonsense. It wasn't an emergency happened in December. It was a couple of years into my radio career. And like, I didn't have financial knowledge. I was still young. It was my first radio job. I think I was just winding up uni. So like I didn't have rent, you know what I mean, to pay.
Must be nice.
Yeah, but you already have a job.
Yeah.
Which means these things you're doing in uni, like social engagements, that are really, they're very many in December. I can afford it in my head, quote unquote, afford it. Although looking back, I'm like, I think if you looked at your financials. And I remember having the best December. I went and did everything. I treated myself to so much. I bought gifts recklessly for people. And come January, I remember and then I wasn't checking my balance because I didn't want bad news.
Bad vibes. Yeah.
January, I go to the ATM and like the amount, I can't remember the specific amount, the amount I punch in, it's just like, hey, insufficient.
You don't have money.
Yeah. And I was just like, what do you mean? Where did it go?
Yeah.
You know? And January is long. It's like 5 weeks. Trust me, I know, because that January taught me.
57 days.
Exactly. And I remember really having an AGM with myself. I was still pretty young, like early 20s.
Yeah.
But I was just like, imagine never again. Because we're in this situation, not because something life-changing happened. Like there was no health emergency or like something that we could look back and rationalize.
Yeah.
We're here because we were just moving recklessly.
You're moving mad.
And so I've been trying to get, since then, I was just like, I'm never going to be, I'd rather stay in my house the whole of December and then January be like, hey, I can breathe, you know? So that's why I wanted to rope you in. So maybe we can start with your personal stories as well.
Now, for me, it's a little bit different because for the longest time I didn't have money to do nothing to begin with.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's the whole. Remember the last time we spoke about money personalities, right? I still think that has a lot to do with how December or the holidays look like for you financially, yeah? Because most of the time, if not all of the time, we spend emotionally. So, I mean, you're feeling nice.
Yeah.
You're feeling, oh, at least I'm not working so hard this month. It's been a long time since you saw family also. There are babies all around the place.
Yeah.
You want to give them. You want to give to your parent, your sister. You want them to be like, oh, Auntie Adelle, just got me this. You know, it's emotional spending, yeah? So I think that really plays a role. But I don't even think, for me, the problem, from where I sit as a finance coach, for instance, my issue has never been all of that. I genuinely love the holidays. I love gifting. I think it's a necessary part of life because also, man, we've been grinding all year.
Tena this year with Ruto.
Don't, Jamani, do you want me to leave the podcast? Do you want me to leave? It's honestly so hard all year, right? The thing that I wish we all had and I had, because like I've also had a Christmas where I really went all out. I didn't regret what I did for my family, but I did regret not having planning for it, right? Because that's the time when I just started learning about finances and trying to get a little bit of financial literacy here and there is when I came across like what I am. I think people who know me, if they were to nickname me, they'd probably call me emergency fund or sinking fund. Like that's like akakamamaka sinking fund. Cause learning about sinking funds changed my life, right? Cause let me give you an example. Because you see what happens, and the reason why as Kenyans we're like January, you know, it's so long. It's because what we do in December, we do with our December salary. The salary that is apparently supposed to last us all the way to end of January. Or that's assuming you're employed. And as someone who's also in business, unless you do a business that is in alignment with holidays, like for me, I coach. No one is thinking about like personal development in December. What do you mean? And it's one of the reasons I take the month off. Yeah. So I grind January to November and then I just relax in December because even if I wanted to convince you all to come for coaching classes, ain't nobody got time.
At the beach, please.
Exactly. So, and I started imagining, instead of, you know, getting my 50,000 at the end of the month and then doing all of this, and by the time it's January, I only have 10 left. Yeah. And I'm supposed to, you know, have that push me till the end of the month. Imagine if every month from January to December, for instance, I put aside, say, 2,000 every month or 3,000 every month. And I'm like, this 3,000 is going to be my Christmas sinking fund or my Christmas holidays sinking fund. And you just automate it, forget about it. Just have it go to your money market fund or wherever. And at the end of the year, you have a whopping 36,000. That's not from your December salary. And the thing that I loved most about that idea of a sinking fund is what I call guilt-free spending. That's my favorite part. It's not even having the money for it. It is that, because you have the money. It's just that, was that money meant for that purpose? So my favorite part is the guilt-free spending part of it. So I have a whopping 36,000 to just chop. December, me na chop 2 pesa, and none of it is coming from my December salary. So I can enjoy gifting. I can enjoy whatever it is that makes me happy.
Travel
Or whatever. So the 3,000 is just an example. Heck, if you can do 10 every month, and a lot of us can, Adele, because that's exactly how much you'll probably, go out with on a typical random Friday, and you spend that much or even more. So, and it all comes down to value-based spending. I have nothing against having a good time every Friday, but like, if you value holidays so much, if you value time with your family so much, then you want to kind of like look at, what are the other areas I spend money on that they really don't mean as much to me. So don't scrap the whole amount. Maybe you can half it, and then have the other half go to something you value.
I traveled to somewhere other than Shags once, one December. And I disliked it because the rates were very high. The hotel was so full, which meant the standards, you could tell the staff is overwhelmed. And I just was like, this is not the same experience I have.
Exactly.
And I remember saying, I like traveling in a certain condition that I almost will never get in December because high season, right? So the decision is I don't travel in December.
Me too.
And I think that was like, then it was like, okay, so what do you like doing in December? Do you want to host? What does that look like financially, right? Do you want to go to Shags, right? Do you not want to drive? Because also then it's like, there's so many people on the roads, accidents, now flying. Okay, can I plan for that, right? There's also the issue of when you get your December salary. Because I remember when I was employed, we would get our December salary by like the second week of December.
Like 20th.
Yes. And it's such a, it's so... It's like those TikToks of putting, you put your kids in front of snacks and you tell them, don't touch. It's literally like that, because you're just like, wait. So, and you forget it's meant to take you
31st of January all the way. I found that was the weirdest thing. When I was employed, ours would come on the 22nd actually. And we'd be released on the 23rd. Tell me why I will not spend that whole amount of money shopping. I need to peleka unga to my mom, and I need Siji to do what? Like, by 27th, you don't have money.
You're like, I'm giving my staff, like if you have a gardener or a domestic manager, you're like, I want to give them a bonus, because even then let them enjoy Christmas.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? If they do not pay you at that time, and maybe on other months you paid on the 31st or even the 2nd of the following month, if you're not paid on the 22nd or earlier during Christmas or the holiday season, you feel like they delayed your salary. Like, it's a problem now. Like, wanataka tuende sikukuu na nini. I'm just like, honey, there's a better way. I like to tell my clients that there's always a better way to do things, right? And as I'm saying, like the sinking funds idea, I sell that to everyone. You don't even have to be my client, because I'm like, you will just realize how stress-free it is. Do it the first year. Like, now we're preparing for, maybe 2024 imeenda for some people.
You can still stay home. You can manage.
But for 2025, when you're doing your new budget, I always encourage people to do a new budget for every new year, right? Heck, even every new month and every new quarter, because there's no one month that is the same as the other. There's no one quarter that's the same as the other. There, like this first quarter of the year, a lot of priorities in school, and school fees and things like that, taking kids to school. So towards the end of the year, that last quarter of the year, a lot of the focus is holidays, right? People are home. We need to support our parents. The kids are going gonna be home, like now because of KCSE.
Yeah.
Kids are home.
Yeah.
So you're gonna spend more, right? So I think for me, it's the idea that we've always had of budgeting is that you should only just put serious stuff in there. So you don't think that, okay, say for example, you like hosting. Why isn't there a budget line on your budget for hosting? You love game nights. Why isn't there a budget line for your game nights? You, for example, on Christmas love to do charity work and go maybe bless a children's home or whatever with some staff and all of that. You know, you're going to have to go. Even if you have donations, you still will go back to your pocket to kind of like facilitate some things. It's the idea that if it is not rent, transport, and school fees, it doesn't require to be put on a budget.
Serious.
It's not serious. And the day I learned that seeing those things on a budget line conditions you to give them the priority they require, and then they just help you to enjoy, as I said, guilt-free spending. So you're like, I have this 60,000 and it is not my salary.
Enjoyment.
It is not for saving. It is not even tithe.
I won't feel it, but I'll sleep well.
I will sleep so well chopping 60,000 between 24th of December to 27th of December. Na imeisha.
Yeah.
And actually, it feels so good, Adele.
Yeah.
It feels so good to do that.
There's another thing that happens, and I'll tell you how I found out about
Yeah.
this. I was going to Shags for a funeral, and my Shags is like 1 hour out of Kisumu. So I needed to fly in, and then I needed to hire a car
Yeah, to
to
take
go
you.
and then come back, right? And so when I was asking the guy, he starts, okay, let me tell you, Janos, we will not run away from these stereotypical jokes. Because it's like, what level SUV do you want? I'm like, dude, I'm one person.
Wow.
Like, the road is good. It's me and my suitcase.
Can't beat
Yeah.
the allegations.
But I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, I had to talk him down to like a saloon car, right? Then, we struck a friendship because I was just laughing. I was like, surely you even knew, what is this? You're just trying to take my money for nonsense.
SUV for Adele, one person.
And he was like, he was kind of playing on like, before we became friends, he was kind of playing on, but you know who you are. You have to, I was just like, I don't have to, I'm looking for 4 wheels that take me
From point A to point
exactly,
B.
right? And then bring me back.
Yeah.
And he told me some people feel family pressure to the point where in December, it's not hard for you to get a car to hire because of, let's say, the situation I was in, like I didn't want to drive or whatever. It's because people are hiring those flashy cars to go home with, to create the illusion that this is their everyday car.
Or prove a point.
And I was like, I've never heard of that. He was like, oh, that's when we make a killing.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you
Talk to
saying?
anyone who is in the car hire business, 100%. They make so much money between November and December. It's high season for any car hire business. High season.
I genuinely thought it was because, like efficiency somehow. I'm proving a point.
Exactly.
So maybe you could speak to December being the time you are around family. You may find that your financial boundaries are strained, if you have any.
Yeah.
Because there is pressure like no other to appear a certain way in those 4 weeks of December.
Yeah. I love that you raised that, Adele. I love conversations around emotional intelligence when it comes to, because it all boils down to what we call your money EQ, emotional intelligence when it comes to money matters. And sadly, I don't know whether it's even sadly, the solution to this is not even financial. Because you might have planned, you might have saved, you actually might have a reasonably good job, but there's buttons that family members know exactly how to press, that if you do not get to the root of it and address it from the psychological perspective or the relational perspective, you're always going to be caught up. And the thing with that is that, see, now last year you went with a Nissan Note, okay? Now you've had a whole year. They hear you got promoted. Ole wako if you're online like us. So, you know, people interpret that because Adele's channel grew from this number to this number, it's like every viewer is 100 bob. You know, now she's a billionaire, you know. So it's almost like we want to prove that we are progressing. So now 2 years or 3 years from then, you're now feeling pressure to, I can't go with this Uber of mine. I need to now go with a Subaru Forester. You stay with it a while, and then next year, next Christmas, you want to go with a Discovery. You know why? Because of the mentality. So 2 things I would say to that. Number 1, I've always told people that, and I think we said that the last time I was here, the money is a tool, but it is a horrible source of identity. You don't want to use money for any other thing other than it being a tool. The moment your sense of worth comes from how much you have, what you're driving, the school your child goes to. You know, there's all that. Actually, people, the holidays are not even just about showing what car you're driving. It's your auntie will be like, wango wanaendanga Brayburn, and where do yours go? It's a trigger. And there are people who know exactly how to,
because they've been with you
to
for
do
so
that.
long. They know
exactly. They know it's gonna bother you. So they and it's so interesting. Like, sadly, like sisters and brothers, for example, are usually, some of them are usually in such weird competition with each other. So you don't want to be asked questions around, or you now want to, you know, last time you felt a certain type of way when you realize your child is the only one who goes to a public school. So now you also want to, I feel like the pressure from being around family, not just on holidays, it kind of like makes you do very unrealistic things throughout the year. So that when us guys meet, you're on
bringing
Christmas,
something.
I'm also coming, I have news. We bought a new car, we now moved to a new house, or now our children are going to this particular school. For me, the solution to that is, 1, really having a strong sense of self, right? I feel it's underrated how impactful that is to your finances, right? Because only a person with a wishy-washy sense of self would make such life-altering decisions, like where your child goes to school, or, you know, buying a car you can't afford and now you're in debt, hiring a car you cannot afford to impress these people that will not pay it with you. They will not even be, in fact, they might not even be impressed with what you hired. They always want more. You know? So for me, I've always said, especially because, and this is the same thing even with black tax, for instance, the thing that makes family very tricky is because they know the right buttons. It's an emotional relationship for you. You're not trying to sever relationships. You're still trying to become part of the family, be included as part of the family, but at the same time, take care of your finances. So it's a very delicate balance to learn. Okay, as sisters, we said that we are going to be giving mommy 10,000, for example, so that she can host us over Christmas, etc. A lot of us are not even able to say, so maybe one of your sisters comes and she's like, maybe she's doing so well and she's like, this 10,000 doesn't do much. Now we have more kids. How about we start doing 40,000? A lot of us will not even have the courage to say, unfortunately, I can't do 40,000, right? It's the feeling that, oh, now they're gonna judge me, or they're gonna say this, or they're gonna say that, or I'm gonna be told that I'm not very cooperative, as you know, or maybe they even notice you have a new car and they're like, hey, since she bought a new car, why is this 40,000 a problem now? And the day people learn that there's absolutely no shame in saying, I cannot afford this, and say what you can. So for me, the trick has always been, I can't do 40, but I'm comfortable with 25. Will you guys take that? So it's not just, and I don't think there's any problem with that. I don't think there's shame in saying, I can't do this, but I can be able to do this. So that part but I can be able to do. So be very open and honest about what you can do.
And I would even add, in that moment where you're saying, but I can, because someone like me, I'm very slow with numbers. And so I'm trying to get comfortable in saying, can I get back to you?
Exactly.
Because in the moment I feel pressure. So I'm like, just give me a week. Let me see what I can. And seeing is not even only looking at my budget. It's sitting and being like, are you okay giving this much? Like
For that
are you
particular
feeling,
thing,
yeah,
for that particular thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Are you like, I've even found like with funeral mchangos or whatever, I take so much time because I sit and I'm like, how are you feeling? It's not enough for me to afford key budget that amount.
Sure.
I have to sit and be like, are you in your heart? Do you feel like are you comfortable with this amount?
Exactly.
Like, are we good? Okay,
Yeah.
sour.
Yeah.
All right, we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of self-awareness.
True.
Right? Because, do you know, the thing I've learned about money, and that's why for me, I really like to, and I'm not immune to this. I don't even think anyone is, because Adele, we can count on our... It's only a handful of things in this world that you can do without money.
Yes.
So money has become a defining thing in relationships, in families, in any social setting.
Yeah.
It's a defining thing, right? So the value system here is being in a position to, first of all, have the level of self-awareness to separate like your identity, or what we call your net worth, from your, you know, like your self-worth. Those two are not the same. Like your net worth is not your self-worth. It does not mean that you're a horrible person if you can't pony up this amount this time, or if you cannot, if you drive to shags, for example.
Fine.
Yeah. But the problem usually is, I don't even think a lot of us, it's innate. It's that you're judging yourself. It is that you feel bad about what, or you're scared about what people will say, or what people will think about.
Yeah.
Or, you know, what they will perceive of you if you come home a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, I don't think that's a money problem.
Yeah.
That's a self-esteem problem. That's a self-worth problem. That's an identity problem, right?
There's a wound there somewhere. An emotional wound.
There's an emotional wound there somewhere. And the thing that, I mean, I keep telling people that money is 80% emotional and 20% logical. Because how many of us know the do's and don'ts of money? So many.
Yeah.
You have the head knowledge, which only just contributes to 20% of whether you behave right or not. But like the rest of the 80% is what you think about yourself, how much of what other people say you let get into you, right? For me, I've always said, because money is so fleeting, Adele, we all know that.
Yeah.
Today I'm bowling.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow,
even the next hour.
I'm not. Exactly. Today you're here.
Yeah.
The other time it's, you know, we are reading stories about you, right?
Yeah.
You could accumulate so much wealth over a lifetime, and just one illness, for instance, changes all that, right? So for me, I find that because money is so fleeting, it's neither here nor there. It's a very dangerous thing to attach your joy, your happiness, your sense of worth to, because then that means they're also gonna be fluctuating. As money, I've met people who their entire mood, even their countenance, their confidence is determined by how much money is in their bank account or their M-Pesa in that moment, by the car they're driving, by people are saying, have you seen Adele? She's doing so well. That it's like you feed off of that for your self-esteem. And that's really, really dangerous. So the whole impressing family and spending money we cannot afford over the holidays is really not a money thing. It's a self-worth thing. It's people need to separate their hearts from like their
wallets,
you know, from their wallet, right? So and also I've found that in African communities we are also not trained to have these conversations without it feeling like taboo, right? Because for most families, the first time in a year they will discuss money is when that mchango is being discussed for Christmas, or when
we are building
building, or we are wedding, or this person passed on. So it's not normalized to have money conversations. So and if people did, they would know, oh, you know, this person's ability just allows them to know this much.
and that's
Fine, right? Or this other person's ability, you know. But then again, I find it reckless that it's like, stop expecting people to do it for you. Stand up for yourself. Learn to say no. I'll never forget my biology teacher in Pango kept saying this thing that was so silly then, but now I see it. Saying no is a sign of maturity. You know why? You are so aware of yourself, of your abilities, and you really are comfortable in drawing boundaries that you do not fear or waver when it's just time to say no.
And my mom always used to say, when you ask for something, you could get 3 answers: yes, no, maybe. And the way you think yes is normal, no is also normal. Maybe is also normal.
I need to think about it. It's
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
You know?
I've started understanding.
Yeah.
Give me a beat. Let me just think about it for a bit and I'll get back to you on how I'm feeling. I love such a yummy conversation. I did a lot of work on myself in especially 2022, intentional work with my therapist and leading towards building a stronger sense of self. I didn't have that. I thought I did. And it's very easy to have a performative sense of self, but ndani, yeah. And I remember one of the things that we found was that because I didn't think I was worthy, I used to buy my relevance in your life.
Yeah.
And so that meant I didn't have financial boundaries. So when it's your birthday, I go above and beyond without even thinking, Adelle, hey, like my budget is screaming in the back. I'm like, shh,
Don't
I have to
me.
buy Susan this big thing.
Yeah.
Because subconsciously what was happening, I wasn't even doing it consciously, right?
Yeah.
Is I was like, I'm not worthy enough as I am to be Susan's friend. So on her birthday, I'm going to perform so loudly.
Right.
So she keeps me here.
Did it work?
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, it never
And
does.
and you find that I would perform like that. It didn't matter if it's family, if it's again moving actually mad. And so with that, I even had to say, okay, Adele, you have to have an amount in your head,
mind.
you know? That is part 1 of our random but not so random convo with Susan Wanjiku. Part 2 will be out next week. But what you need to do in the meantime is get ready for our wellness talk where Susan is going to be our guest speaker. And what I love about Susan, we did at the beginning of the year, our first ever wellness talk was with Susan. And her talks are always very practical. She will even show you tools. She, at the beginning of the year, taught us how to budget. She taught us what good debt is. She taught us about investing and just so much more. And this particular wellness talk that's coming up, she's going to be doing that and so much more. Telling us about sinking funds, telling us about how to plan better for December. What are some tips now that we are a few weeks away from December that we can immediately start to employ to make sure we don't have another broke January? She's also going to be giving us learnings and tips for us to carry into 2025 so that next year our financial wellness can be a lot healthier. Trust me, if you want to get your money right, Susan is a person to listen to. And we try very hard to make sure our wellness talks are super subsidized so that everyone can have access to it. So tickets are literally just 1,000 bob, but the wealth of knowledge you get is worth so much more. Grab your tickets right now. Whenever we have Susan, our tickets sell out really quickly. Grab your tickets right now. A link to it is in the show notes. And they're 1,000 bob. It's on the 16th of November, 10 a.m. And it's all about making sure we never have another broke January. If you are in the greater East African region, you can catch us on Trace East Africa. Just go to traceradio.co.ke every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. If you want to share your story on any of our shows, make sure you fill out our storyteller form. One of our correspondents will get back to you. And last but definitely not least, if you enjoyed this episode, drop us a comment, give us a 5-star rating, and do not forget to share it with your people. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.
I'm Lupita Nyong'o. My new podcast, Mind Your Own, is a storytelling show that navigates what it means to belong, all from the African perspective. We're going beyond the headlines to dive into nuanced, intimate stories from Africans around the world. I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Listen to Mind Your Own on Apple Music.